Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 126 of the Dear Herbalist podcast titled, What Herbalists Can Learn from Pharmacology, Precision, Potency, and Plant Power. If you are new here, you are most certainly welcome. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much, as always, for your continued support. Now, whether you're a seasoned herbalist or just curious about the intersection of traditional botanical knowledge and modern science, this episode is going to help sharpen your business as well as broaden your understanding in herbal formulation as it pertains to pharmacology. Pharmacology might sound like a pharmacist's word, but it's actually a foundational science for anyone working with medicinal plants. Understanding it can actually help herbalists become safer, sharper, and more strategic in our businesses. So we're going to dig in tonight what pharmacology is, how plants act like drugs, and why does this matter for dosing, safety, and efficacy. Now, you guys know that I am an herbalist educator, so I do believe in defining terms as we use them. And we're going to start with pharmacology. So pharmacology is essentially the study of how substances, often drugs or plants, interact with our body. And under pharmacology, it breaks it down into two areas. One is called pharmacokinetics, and this is what the body does to a drug. It covers absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion, often called ADME. And in simpler terms, after you take an herb, pharmacokinetics actually tracks how it moves through your body, where it goes, how it's broken down, and how it leaves your system. Pharmacodynamics focuses on what the drug does to the body. So it explores how the substance actually binds to the receptors, how it triggers effects, and then ultimately, how does it produce a biological response. So to remember, pharmacokinetics is the journey through the body. Think about the word kinetic and movement. And pharmacodynamics is the effect on the body. So how do plants act like drugs? And let's look at also how they do not. Now, many plants contain compounds that function much like a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, where they bind to receptors just the same, they influence biochemical pathways, or they can change cellular activity. But however, unlike single molecule drugs or pharmaceutical drugs, plants are complex mixtures. And this means that their effects can be gentler or more subtle. They could have, they have multiple compounds that may act synergistically, meaning working together, or antagonistically, meaning against each other. And then the whole plant approach accounts for multiple mechanisms beyond just binding to the receptor alone. And so understanding this complexity, it can be both a strength and a challenge for herbalists, especially if you are aiming for a more precise herbal formulation. So let's look at dosing and why this matters. In pharmacology, understanding how much of a substance reaches active sites in the body is called bioavailability. And understanding this word is very important. It affects how potent and effective an herb will be. And equally important, another term is called half-life. And this is how long a substance stays active before being broken down or excreted from the body. So those are the terms that you want to know, as well as therapeutic window. But herbalists can definitely benefit by thinking about how long an herb's active compounds will linger in the body. This is, again, half-life. And then the therapeutic window is the right dose range where the benefits will actually occur without the toxicity. And what happens is understanding these things will help you as an herbalist avoid either underdosing, which basically causes your remedy to be ineffective, or overdosing, giving somebody too much of the herb, which can cause harm. And in herbal medicine, we do not want to do any harm. Least harm as possible, really none at all. So let's look at the herb and drug interactions and the metabolism pathways. One of the ones that I spoke about before is the cytochrome P450 system. And a key pharmaceutical insight is how herbs and drugs interact with the body, especially through this particular pathway. And the CYP450 is a group of liver enzymes which is responsible for metabolizing many substances. So when you're talking about introducing herbs to the body, some of the herbs that you recommend could either inhibit these enzymes, which will slow down the drug's ability to be broken down, or it can induce these enzymes, which can speed up the drug's metabolism. So understanding these interactions can prevent adverse effects, and it helps us as herbalists to work safely alongside conventional medicine. Because let's just keep it real, there are a lot of people out there, whether they be in your family, your clients, or whoever they are, that are using conventional medicine. And it's not realistic to expect them to hurry up and just hop off of it cold turkey, because most people will not. And some people, they will be like, you know what, I am going to start weaning myself off. Well, in the meantime, this drug is circulating through their system. And so as herbalists, you have to understand what type of drugs they are taking. So that way there's no negative interactions with the herbal remedies that you are recommending to them while they're working to remove themselves from that type of situation. And so during this time, you'll be able to collaborate more with doctors and other integrative practitioners because you have that understanding of the adverse reactions or effects that could happen when you're combining herbs and drugs together. There are a lot of herbalists out there that don't understand that or couldn't really explain it effectively, especially when collaborating with doctors. And that this is the reason why some people get dismissed. Like, oh yeah, all right, you don't know what you're talking about. But if you can communicate effectively and say, hey, the goal, as outlined by the client, is to wean themselves off. Well, these are some of the things that I'm recommending as well. And there will not be a negative interaction while the client moves more towards a state of health. So that's very, very important. Now, when we're talking about merging the foundational sciences with traditional herbal medicine, there are some people that are just 100% traditional. They want to run as far away from science as possible. With me, I am the child of traditional medicine, okay, ancient wisdom, merged with foundational sciences, anatomy, physiology, chemistry, biochemistry, that type of thing. So that's me. And so I always look for ways to have an understanding of how the human body works, how formulations work, what happens when, herbs hit our bodies and our systems, and what does the body do with it. So because I want to know all of those things, and I think it really helps, and I really want to, move people more towards a more precise way of herbal formulation, then I look at how to enhance the herbal formulation without getting rid of tradition, because you can't get rid of tradition in herbal medicine. Those landmarks and principles hold true, but you also don't want to get rid of the foundational sciences and understandings because they help validate in a way, not that it needs it, but it does help in a way validate or provide more understanding in terms of how the medicine actually works for the body, because it works, but science helps to show the how. So by applying a lot of these pharmacology principles, we as herbalists can create more effective formulas that actually harness the plant power without the guesswork. Without, well, there's a probability it could work, right? So another thing is that by applying the pharmacology principles, and my voice is getting a little raspy, but I'm just going to keep moving forward because I'm going to say what I got to say. I'm trying to drink water. I'm trying to clear my throat. I'm trying to do everything I can, but it's like, it's just not ticking. So I hope you hear me. I hope you understand what I'm saying, because I'm going to keep moving forward. I really want to get the information out there. I've cleared my throat. I don't know what's going on. It was fine for a second, and then it jumped into, but you know, c'est la vie. um, but again, having an understanding of pharmacology will also help herbalists avoid overly complicated blends that could dilute the potency of the herbal formulation, or it can cause unintended interactions, which we do not want. Another thing is that it helps maintain the wisdom of energetics as well as the traditional frameworks while incorporating evidence-based understanding. And in our world of herbal medicine, you know, it's unfortunate, but there's always been a fight for relevance. There's always been a fight for respect, people to understand that, you know, we're not quacks. We're just not talking out the side of our neck, but we actually really understand what's going on. And so by adding this pharmacology understanding, this allows us to be able to show them that the traditional frameworks that are already in place and the conversations around energetics when it comes to herbs, there is research that is backing what's going on in those conversations. And so people have to know and understand that. But the overall goal is never to replace tradition, but to bridge it with science so that we can have more accuracy. We can make things safer and more impactful when we are working with our clients. And we're not doing a whole lot of guessing, hoping and praying that it works. So let's talk about really quickly how we can bridge energetics as well as evidence-based actions in our business. Now, when we talk about energetics, we talk about the cooling, the warming, the moist or the dry, and we use these to describe the actions of the plants. Pharmacology offers a complementary lens which actually focuses on measurable biological mechanisms. So combining both will preserve the rich tradition that actually guides the practice of what we do. It also adds precision to our formulation as well as the decisions that we need to make. And it inspires confidence in how we communicate with other healthcare professionals. They understand like, oh, okay, you studied this, you researched this, you know what you're talking about, right? Not that we put 100% stock in really caring what other people think, but when it comes to effectively communicating, especially if you're working with a client who also has a doctor, it will give you more confidence in being able to communicate with them because you understand the science side of things. So why does this matter for us as herbalists? One of the things that's important to understand is that it empowers us to design formulas with confidence in dosing and interactions. It also empowers us to avoid under effective or overly complex blends. We're able to speak the language of modern medicine when we're collaborating across professions, and it allows us to navigate safety and efficacy thoughtfully. And this is whether we're addressing acute or chronic conditions. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, having this conversation around pharmacology. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all of my social media sites at The Demystified Herbalist. And until next time, family, I'm out.